Tony, we had a recent discussion with David Pollard, and I met him in February of '02. As it happened, I knew you in a sense before that.
Not in the biblical sense, I mean,
probably not, you know. But basically, from about 2000, wasn't it? Couple 94, and
late 2000. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and you came in and you became in fact part of the Waterloo Press element in the sense that you were also there with the Arts Council and trying to get us originally signposted towards getting some grants, which you much later on managed to do, before. So what we really discovered was this extraordinary man who you had a business inclination at the age of 46, and then went off to do a degree in fine art, basically.
Yeah. I was very lucky. Can't say I was a good businessman, but I was a lucky businessman. So I retired at 46, and not wanting to play golf 7 days a week, I thought I'd find out if there was a brain in there. The jury's still out on that. But yes, I did history of art, not fine art.
That's what I meant to say, sorry.
And then loved it so much, loved the idea of people who knew telling me things, because up to then I'd been the boss and I had to assume I knew, often not knowing, and then I had experts teach me about art, and I thought I'd gone a bit further, and I took a master's in Renaissance and modern literature and loved that so much, and was encouraged to go on and do my take a doctorate, and by then I'd fallen madly in love with poetry, and even more madly in love with the poetry coming from Northern Ireland, because it had this awful conflict. It was in by then the 69 to 99, 30 years of that conflict, and the most stupendous, I think, some of the best poetry that's been written in a long, long time has come from that. Like war does. Is there a better line in poetry than Owen's "Move him into the sun, those teeth were meant for laughing round an apple"? Now you would have thought no one would ever go to war when they'd read something like that, wouldn't you? Or get the illusion that this child should not be lying dead in a ditch. He should be still laughing in an orchard somewhere. So
Tu Fu, 8th century, died in 772. One says it blue as the smoke of war and white the bones of men. Maybe they just need to be reminded sometimes.
Yes. But the strange thing is that no matter how we're reminded, how often we're reminded of what we shouldn't do via war, we still go into the bloody thing. But you shouldn't stop you writing about it. It shouldn't, because if nothing else, it just might help someone who suffered from it. Yeah. Indeed, my fourth collection was called Letters from a Cave in Saltine, and that is to do with the cave being my little sanctuary, which you met me in, metaphorically, and when I came down to here. And I came down here just shortly before the Iraqi war, but also at the same time as I'd split up with my wife, so the conflict, my minor conflict and the major conflict of war, were on my mind, and I wondered if you could talk about both things in the same book. But of course you can. Yeah. You know, you have to make the big little and the little big, because there's nothing more profound than life and death, is there? So and they're both a kind of life and a kind of death.
This is what happened a lot of the time to you. I've noticed that there was that very much foregrounded conflict with your wife or ex-wife by that time, before Dawn came into your life, and you had this sonant quality. Also, the Ramblings volumes, which seemed to be extraordinary, that the poems literally peditated themselves, as it were, out.
Yeah.
And you have this great voice. I mean, you have an extraordinary following. You should basically say the Red Roaster and other places know you very well. The Jubilee Library knows you very well. You have a massive following as a poet and as a reader. And, even down locally, the Argus is always full. There's another Tony Frisby reading. So you have this extraordinary advantage, not only of, as you say, of hanging up your very large boots at the age of 46, but this different incarnation, which I always wonder begs questions about where we will find what you did in your business life.
Yeah. Well, mine was a very simple business. It was a hardware shop, and it had a post office attached. And it was just part of the way you get from A to B and make a couple of bob on the way.
Mm.
And the beauty of it was not in of itself, but what it allowed me to do. And retiring early and going off and finding something else to express myself. Because there is something about retail that is very personal. If you have a slack Saturday, if your shop doesn't take money, so you actually feel it's your fault. You're a dreadful person. There's something wrong with you. Which is not a million miles away from how a poet must feel. How I feel if I write a poem and I read to an audience that isn't getting it. I feel the same sort of rejection. Or I get that beautiful feeling when I can see I've got a face down there.
Yes.
That no, I don't look for sales.
No,
I mean, I'd rather give my stuff away than worry about sales.
I didn't mean that. I meant you've sold yourself.
Yes, sold the idea. But in the back of my mind, perhaps with many Irish people, is I hear my mother saying, as I'm standing up before 100 people reading a poem, why didn't you copy yourself on by? You know, which would be her way of saying, don't get above yourself.
No.
You know, so it's a great journey. I hope I'm still on.
Yes, it's a great Sunderland parentage. The Dublin element, which we'll both add to some extent in very different ways, has produced something that's also quite special because the voicing is very much part of the autobiographical sequence. We're now publishing Me, Me and Not Me and the variety of versions that gave it breath and life. And that's something which I think is absolutely fascinating. I mean, your work really has this extraordinary resonance, but also your voicing of it is part of what gives it its breath. And that's become very much a special part of our own experiences, which is where I'm going to sign off and say, well, please people buy the book, and I think the audio CD should be coming out as well. So,
grand.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. Hi, I'm going to read Tremor Strand, which in a sense will link to what Simon and I were talking about, how being Irish, I seem to spend half my time, maybe not just being Irish, maybe we all do it, but spend my time in the past, and somehow it always brings itself back to the present. So this is Tremor Strand, which is a place I swam in when I was a child, but it begins with picking blackberries. Frantic gropings in the badlands of an August hedge, one-armed strainings for the heart to get you'll never catch me alive berries, nestled deep in the jet black, the just beyond reach black of a boy's desperate lungings. And always the artful dodge of thorn-laden branches slashing like King Cuchulainn's five-edged sword against all trespassers, until suddenly, as though a year had never passed, whole handfuls yield to growing expertise. Two-handed pickings now, soft tinkles gathering on themselves, black gold, the song of plenty noising the bottom of your pail, until summer's bounty, massing skywards like silent prayers, crowds too dense upon itself to be heard. Now, only glossy thuds greet the plump and dumbstruck juice-heavy sacrifices, to custard tarts and pies cooling smugly on a larder shelf, are arrayed in golden ceremony on our buckling kitchen table. Some days I could sell a morning's pickings for 4p, and not for one back-to-school propelling pencil, a boy's own newspaper and an ice cream, but a day's squelchy mass could yield more than enough for me and Breeder Power in the dark, steamy, back-row courting seats of Mrs. Kirby's tin-roof cinema on Slieve Dew, or a trip to Tremor Strand, where Breeder and I learned to swim with the tide. The same old waves, the same old games splash this newer shore, the same longings for autumn pickings and lovings on the strand, but different names tumble in the surf, crowd the past into another country, another place where I no longer am. I can even recall the faces of those who, teaching me how to love, forgot to tell me how to let go. Thank you.